Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas wants to make your workplace more dangerous. The court on Tuesday had declined to hear an appeal by the All States refractory contractors after a lower court threw out the Ohio company's lawsuit against the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA. Now, they argued that the law that gave OSHA the authority to issue workplace safety standards actually violates Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution, which gives lawmaking powers to Congress and no other branch of the federal government. So they unsuccessfully tried to get the Supreme Court to hear their case, which would, if heard, it is possible that the Supreme Court could then rule that OSHA is unconstitutional, which is exactly what Clarence Thomas and Justice Neil Gorsuch wanted. That's why they actually voted to hear it. So now, Gorsuch, very well known for taking the side of corporations over human beings, even if it means the death of said human being. Gorsuch had infamously sided with the delivery truck firm that had fired a driver for seeking warmth after his truck broke down during a winter storm. Okay, I mean, massively cold temperatures, in the negatives. This guy, had he not left his load, would have froze to death. So after he left his load, of course, he got fired by the company and blackballed from the industry, because that is a cardinal sin for truck driving, leaving your load. So this guy had no recourse other than to sue. So now 6 judges in that case, this is the case of Alphonse Madden, or the frozen truck driver case, right? 6 judges in that case ruled that Madden was in the right to leave in order to get warmth, and that the law protected him. The one judge that didn't agree was Gorsuch, who said that the judges favoring Madden had leaned toward the Chevron Doctrine, where judges defer to government departments to interpret statutes, in the case the Department of Labor. Now, thanks to Gorsuch, and thanks to Clarence Thomas, the conservative justices, that statute, that no longer exists, the doctrine. Okay, Chevron Doctrine, gone. So the case, any future cases where you have a loosely defined law or regulation written by Congress, now would go to the courts instead of these departments, these agencies that might actually protect the workers. So it would go to the courts who would not protect the workers, who favor corporations, like Gorsuch and Thomas have done. So now Gorsuch gave no reason for his wanting to hear the case, but Thomas did. Thomas's dissenting opinion is as follows. The question whether the Occupational Health and Safety Administration's broad authority is consistent with our constitutional structure is undeniably important. At least 5 justices have already expressed an interest in reconsidering this court's approach to Congress's delegations of legislative power. The petition is an excellent vehicle to do exactly that. OSHA may be the broadest delegation of power to an administrative agency found in the United States Code. If this far-reaching grant of authority does not impermissibly confer legislative power on an agency, it is hard to imagine what would. It would be no less objectionable if Congress gave the IRS service the authority to impose any tax on a particular person that it deems appropriate. No, it's not the same thing. Again, OSHA, which is supposed to be about occupational health and safety, if they were rendered toothless to come up with rules to help protect workers, then that would endanger workers. That would be a problem here. But of course, to these corporations and their lackeys, like Justice Thomas, that would be a good thing. Like, yes, let's render OSHA completely toothless when it comes to regulations. So remember, these companies would fire you for choosing not to freeze to death. That's the power that he wants to give to the companies. It's the power he wants to give to himself to decide, no. I think that they should freeze to death. Totally fine. If the corporation is going to lose a couple of bucks on this regulation, then this regulation needs to go. Now, not only that, but of course, they would allow you to die from heat-related illness in order to save these same companies an extra buck as well. The Biden administration, however, does not agree with that. They put out new rules intended to save the lives of workers. Under the new regulations put forward by the Biden administration, employers would be required to develop a heat injury and illness prevention plan and appoint a workplace heat safety coordinator. This is going on as climate change continues to cause even more extreme temperatures all across the country. Now, if the heat index, according to these rules, were to hit the 80-degree mark, workers would have to be provided with drinking water and access to break areas in the shade or in air-conditioned spaces. That sounds incredibly reasonable. Oh, here, we're going to make sure you have water, and if you get too overheated, you get to take a break. Now, I say that sounds reasonable, but again, you have people, you have companies that are saying, no, that's not reasonable because it'll cost us money. Well, we shouldn't have to do that. What, so you're okay with your workers dying from the heat, getting heat stroke, going to the hospital? And their answer, of course, is an overwhelming yes. Yes, we're totally fine with that. We don't care. We'll just hire somebody else. We'll fire you. We'll hire someone else. Or we'll get people from temp agencies who will never actually be employees to just cycle through. Again, when it comes to workplaces not caring about workers, yes, they don't care about workers because they're not required to, and they never will. You know why? Because they will never have a conscience, because they're not human beings. Corporations are not people, my friend, okay? They're not, and what they are is just machines that make money. That is their entire purpose, is to make profit for shareholders. If it means you die, then you die. That's it. So now, imagine, by the way, getting back to the water thing, right? Now, imagine not being able to get access to water at work because your employer is too cheap. Well, that's exactly what happened to a Texas postal worker who collapsed and died as a result of the heat. That was the same year where another worker, a 35-year-old utility lineman from West Virginia, died from heat-related causes while working to restore power in Texas. It's something that links these two things. Oh, right, it happens to be Texas. These deaths happened after Governor Greg Abbott signed into law a measure rescinding city and county ordinances requiring mandatory water breaks for construction workers in the same week where many cities across the state reached triple-digit temperatures. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a great example of someone who does not give a damn whether or not you die, as long as they save a couple of bucks. Okay? So that's Governor Greg Abbott. That's what's happening, has happened in Texas. That's actually from last year. But I mean, here's members of the Supreme Court, two of them, saying we're open to making sure that we don't have OSHA, that we have a toothless agency out there to protect workers, because we don't actually want to protect workers. Now, getting back to these new regulations here floated by the Biden administration, which would have measures that would have to be implemented to allow for the acclimatization of employees who are either new or returning to work after an illness, including more frequent breaks and a reduced workload until employees are back up to speed. And also, if the heat index were to exceed 90 degrees Fahrenheit, all of the employees would be allowed a 15-minute break every 2 hours, and managers would be required to monitor workers for symptoms of heat-related illness. Now, if Gorsuch and Thomas had their way, rules like these would never be able to exist. That's what's important here. That is the takeaway, not the fact that the rest of the court declined to hear this case. It is, there are members on the Supreme Court who would allow for you to die at work. That's the reality here, okay? Republicans will kill you if it means saving these companies money. That's why the Supreme Court is so important. That's why regulations are important. And that's why it's so disastrous now with the end of the Chevron Doctrine, as well as these different cases. Remember, conservatives have been waiting for a Supreme Court that looks like this for a very, very long time. Decades they have been waiting biding their time. And now we see them getting hit with just a blitz of these kinds of cases that roll back environmental regulations, that roll back workers' rights regulations, and the power of regulatory agencies all across the board. And we have seen all of this happen just in this most recent Supreme Court term. So, and the worst thing about it is we're stuck with the Supreme Court for a generation. 6-3 for a very long time. And and I'm afraid that more and more regulations are going to continue not to just be chipped away at, but just outright repealed and destroyed. And that's going to mean a lot of disaster. It's going to mean a lot of death for average workers, all because you have a corrupt Supreme Court that has been bought by billionaires like Leonard Leo and Harlan Crow, and groups like Heritage Foundation, bankrolled by ultra wealthy billionaires who get rich off of making sure that you are not protected at work. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon in order to get notified whenever a new video is released. And if you want to support independent, progressive media through this difficult time where it seems like everybody is shut down, you can become a member on our YouTube page, you can become a subscriber on Facebook, or you can go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Thank you.